The first time Under Secretary Trellick saw a human, he thought his visual receptors were failing. He rubbed all 6 of his eyes with his tendrils, blinked again, and stared across the grand ceremonial hall. No, the strange creature was still there, standing upright, balanced only on 2 spindly limbs. No protective plating, no secondary arms, no sensory frills. Just soft, pale skin and an oddly smooth face that barely seemed fit for survival. It was absurd, and yet every eye in the chamber was locked on the same figure. The herald Grizz raised his booming voice that rattled the crystal spires overhead. Presenting Ambassador James Blackwell of Earth. The name echoed across the hall like a challenge. Trellick shifted uneasily in his seat beside his colleague Vaz. Thousands of representatives, elders, soldiers, and scholars from 27 advanced civilizations watched the human with barely disguised suspicion. Trellick leaned toward Vaz, lowering his voice. "That's it, that's what all the fuss is about." Vaz, with her 4 gleaming Quarian eyes, blinked in rapid succession, a nervous tick of her species. "Don't be fooled, Trellick. These humans have conquered 3 hostile worlds without firing a weapon." Trellick snorted through his vocal sacs. "Nonsense, look at it. No claws, no armor, it doesn't even carry proper scent glands." But then the human moved. James Blackwell stepped forward with calm, unhurried grace, his dark uniform crisp and simple, marked only with 2 small letters, JC. His hair was cropped short, his face expressionless, but those eyes, Trellick stiffened. The human's eyes were bright, piercing blue, and they scanned the chamber with the slow precision of a predator studying prey. Not lingering too long, not darting nervously, just cataloging, assessing. Trellick felt the uncomfortable sensation of being weighed, measured, and quietly dismissed. At the far end of the hall, Supreme Counselor Drexis glided forward on his ancient hover platform. His thin body trembled with age, the crystalline tubes of his life support humming softly. 9 centuries old, Drexis had presided over more negotiations than anyone alive. His voice, amplified by translators, was fragile but steady. "Ambassador Blackwell, we welcome Earth's representative to the Galactic Consortium. Your request for full membership shall be judged by our protocols. The trials begin tomorrow at first light." The human's mouth curved upward, revealing rows of small white teeth. To most species, exposing one's teeth was a threat display, but this was different, softer, almost disarming. Still, Trellick recoiled instinctively. Then James Blackwell spoke. His voice was low, smooth, and carried easily through the vast chamber. "Earth thanks you for this opportunity. We come seeking friendship, trade, and mutual prosperity." Pretty words, Trellick thought sourly. He rolled his eyes, yet something about the tone unsettled him. The human didn't sound like a supplicant begging entry. He sounded like an equal. Hours passed as ceremony gave way to receptions and formal introductions. Delegates murmured, exchanged pleasantries, and tested the newcomer with pointed questions. Trellick watched carefully. Blackwell didn't flinch, didn't stumble. He responded with precise politeness to the militant Craxians. He asked thoughtful questions of the philosophical Aluxians. He even coaxed a rare clicking laugh from the humorless Xantharins. Impossible, Trellick thought. Beginner's luck. Tomorrow, when real negotiations began, the human would surely crumble. Still, as Trellick returned to his quarters, he couldn't shake the memory of those blue eyes sweeping across the chamber. Calm, cold, patient. Predator eyes. The next morning, the grand negotiation chamber thrummed with tension. Crystal ceilings glittered in every wavelength of light, casting shifting rainbows over the massive circular table where the delegations sat. Ambassador Blackwell sat alone. No aides, no assistants, just a single thin tablet in front of him. Trellick leaned toward Captain Morox, the towering insectid head of station security. "Where's his team?" Morox's mandibles clacked. Humans sent only him, standard procedure apparently. "That's not confidence," Trellick muttered. "That's suicide." "Perhaps," Morox rumbled. "We shall see." Supreme Counselor Drexis opened the session with ancient formality. "Today begins Earth's petition for membership. We start with trade negotiations." The Aluxians raised their translucent hands. "We have concerns about Earth's mineral reserves, particularly those on Mars." James Blackwell inclined his head politely. "Mars is indeed vital to us. We are prepared to offer exclusive rights to 3 rare elements mined there." A thunderous fist struck the table. General Durg of the Craxian Empire loomed, his armored bulk casting long shadows. 3 out of 17. Insulting, new members grant half their resources. Every delegate turned, waiting for the human to recoil. But Blackwell's expression didn't change. His voice was calm. With respect, General, those precedents were set in the early ages. Current members don't grant half their resources. Why should new applicants be held to harsher standards? Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The human was right. The old powers hoarded their advantages while demanding sacrifice from newcomers, but no one had ever dared say it so bluntly. Blackwell continued, his tone still polite. Furthermore, our scans show the Craxian Empire has stockpiles sufficient for 70 years. But the Aluxians are facing shortages of neodymium crystals, something Mars holds in abundance. We are willing to provide preferential access for their medical research. The Aluxian ambassador froze, his translucent skin flushing purple. That shortage was classified. How did the human know? General Durg slammed the table again. You dare presume to know our needs? Not presume, Blackwell replied, still calm. Observe, negotiate. Solutions must be based on actual need, not outdated protocol. For hours, the human steered the storm. He asked sharp questions. He cut through posturing. Slowly, arguments among the delegates turned away from Earth and toward each other. Instead of demanding, they were explaining. Instead of unity, divisions grew. By midday, Trellick sat stiff in his seat, his 6 eyes wide with disbelief. He's dividing them, he whispered to Vaz. No, Vaz whispered back. He's hunting them, watch carefully, Trellick. Trellick shivered. For the first time, he believed her. When the session adjourned, Ambassador Blackwell gathered his tablet and walked out alone. Calm, unhurried, as if the chaos of 27 civilizations was nothing more than a mild conversation. And in that moment, Trellick understood. Humanity was dangerous, not because of their weapons, not because of their technology, but because of the way James Blackwell smiled. The alarm howled through the crystalline corridors of the station, its pitch shifting to match the auditory ranges of 27 species at once. Red warning lights flared in overlapping spectrums, catching on polished walls, scattering rainbows of panic. Trellick froze, his 6 eyes blinking in frantic confusion. Perimeter breach here. Captain Morox thundered past, mandibles clicking as he shouted orders to his security teams. Escort the delegates to safe zones, secure the Supreme Counselor. But James Blackwell didn't run. The human's head tilted, those cold blue eyes narrowing as if the alarm was a puzzle to solve rather than a threat to fear. He whispered something to himself in English, a language Trellick barely recognized, but his body language was unmistakable. Alert, focused, predatory. Trellick shouted after him, Ambassador, protocol demands you remain in secure quarters. Blackwell didn't even look back. He was already moving against the flow of panicked diplomats, slipping through the chaos like a soldier who knew the terrain by instinct. Vaz appeared at Trellick's side, her 4 eyes wide with alarm. He's heading for the central chamber. Madness, Trellick muttered. That's where the attackers will be. Exactly, Vaz replied grimly. They caught up with him near a sealed service corridor. The human had already bypassed the access panel, rerouting wires with frightening speed. The door hissed open, revealing a shortcut Trellick hadn't even known existed. How? Trellick stammered. Blackwell spared him the briefest glance. Station schematics, studied them on the journey, less talk, more moving. Before Trellick could protest, Blackwell was through the door, striding with urgent confidence. Against his better judgment, Trellick followed. The service corridor led them into the central chamber from a side entrance. The scene inside made Trellick's blood run cold. Supreme Counselor Drexus lay trapped behind his damaged hover platform, sparks spitting from shattered conduits. Around him, 3 heavily armed Craxian insurgents advanced, their armored forms looming like living tanks. Other delegates cowered behind overturned furniture, their voices rising in shrill terror. Morox's security team was pinned down at the opposite entrance, unable to advance without triggering a bloodbath. And then James Blackwell stepped into the open. Gentlemen, his voice rang out, calm and conversational. I believe there's been a misunderstanding. The lead Craxian swung toward him, weapon raised. Stand aside, human, this does not concern you. Actually, Blackwell said, still moving forward, I think it does. He gestured toward the insignia burned into the insurgents' armor. 3rd Brigade, isn't it? You lost 17 ships in the Proxima Centauri incident. Families left without compensation. Entire kin groups erased. The Craxian faltered. His forearms tightened on his weapon, but his mandibles clicked in confusion. How could you possibly know that? Blackwell's blue eyes gleamed like ice. Because I make it my business to understand grievances. You're right to be angry, but killing the Supreme Counselor won't bring your comrades back. Behind the insurgents, Captain Morox's team shifted, inching closer. Blackwell kept talking, voice steady, tone persuasive. Think carefully. If you succeed, your kin groups gain nothing. If you fail, they lose everything. But if Earth joins the consortium, our proposal includes retroactive benefits for fallen warriors. That includes your kin, 17 ships, 3 of them yours. The insurgents froze, their weapons wavered, doubt crept into their alien eyes. And in that hesitation, Morox struck. His security team surged forward with mechanical precision, stunning bolts cracking through the air. The insurgents collapsed, weapons clattering harmlessly to the floor. The chamber erupted into chaos, diplomats sobbing, guards shouting, aides rushing to Drexus. Through it all, James Blackwell simply walked over and extended his hand to the Supreme Counselor. Are you injured, sir? Drexus stared up at him with all 8 milky eyes. You saved my life. Blackwell shrugged. I protected Earth's interests, and for now they align with yours. But Trellick had seen his face in those moments. No calculation, no politics, just raw instinct, a predator not hunting but protecting. Later, the Security Council convened in emergency session. The chamber buzzed with accusation and fear. This human had access to classified information, General Durg thundered, his armored fists shaking the table. How else could he know about our losses? This reeks of espionage. Vaz stepped forward, calm as ever, her datapad glowing in her lower hands. The information was public, she explained. The Aluxian shortage was buried in trade reports. The Craxian losses were hidden in budget requests, obscured, yes, but not classified. Impossible, Durg bellowed. No one could piece that together. Vaz glanced at Blackwell. Apparently humans can. Trellick felt a chill crawl down his limbs. Not espionage, not luck, pattern recognition, preparation. The human had studied them, all of them, until he knew their secrets better than they did. And now every alien in the chamber knew it too. The council chamber vibrated under the distant tremors of weapons fire. Not direct hits, warning shots. Enough to rattle nerves. Enough to make every species present realize the station's fragile defenses were no match for a Craxian dreadnought. Trellick's limbs trembled as the AI repeated the warning. Unidentified vessel, dreadnought class, weapons active. Commanding officer demands immediate transfer of human ambassador James Blackwell. All eyes turned. The human sat in his chair with calm composure, fingers steepled, those blue eyes fixed on the central holoscreen. Not fear, not even surprise, just calculation. Supreme Counselor Drexus wheezed, his frail form sagging on his hover platform. Ambassador Blackwell, for your safety, we must relocate you. No, Blackwell's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. This isn't about my safety. This is about who controls the narrative. General Durg slammed his armored fist on the table. You are a liability, human. Your presence has brought warships to our doorstep. And yet, Blackwell replied smoothly, if I leave this chamber, your warships may find a reason to fire. The tension snapped like a taut wire. Delegates muttered, voices overlapping in a storm of fear. Then the holoscreen lit up. The scarred face of Commander Zorax filled the chamber. His left mandible was metallic, his right arm replaced with a prosthetic of black alloy. One of his eyes gleamed red from cybernetic replacement. This was not a diplomat. This was a warrior who had lived through too many battles. Blackwell, he growled. The translator softened nothing of his fury. How generous of you to show your face. James Blackwell leaned back in his chair, folding his hands. His voice remained calm. Commander Zorax, I hear you have concerns. The scarred Craxian leaned forward, plate scraping as he bared his fangs. Concerns, my sensors detected your species' signature scans in our territory. Earth spies violate our borders, and now you stand before me seeking membership in this consortium. Lies, hypocrisy. Gasps rippled through the chamber. If the accusation was true, Earth's petition was doomed. Trellick's hearts pounded. He turned to Vaz, whispering, "If this is real, the humans are finished." But Vaz's 4 eyes were fixed on Blackwell. "Watch him carefully." Blackwell didn't deny it, not at first. Instead, he tilted his head, studying the sensor data Zorax had pushed to the holoscreen. Streams of numbers, spectral graphs, pulse signatures. After a long pause, Blackwell said, "Interesting, General Durg." He turned toward the hulking Craxian delegate seated at the table. "Would you confirm something for me? The base signature matches Earth scans, yes, but this modulation, irregular, too crude." Durg's plates twitched, his mandibles scraped together. At last, he gave a reluctant nod. "Yes, it matches, but poorly. A copy, not exact." Blackwell rose from his seat, hands clasped behind his back. "Commander Zorax, you have been deceived. These were not human ships. Someone is using your grief to ignite conflict." Zorax's cybernetic eye narrowed. "Explain." "Gladly," Blackwell said. He touched the holoscreen, isolating one frequency buried under the false signal. "This carrier wave, distinctive, Tissoid manufacture." The chamber exploded in uproar. The Tissoid ambassador leapt to his feet, frills flaring in outrage. "You dare accuse us? The collective has no quarrel with Craxians or humans." "Not the collective," Blackwell said firmly, "but someone with access to your technology, someone who benefits from making Earth the enemy, someone who knew Zorax would respond with fury to a Proxima-style betrayal." The words hit like a hammer, silence fell, and slowly heads turned toward General Durg. Trellick felt his tendrils curl tight. Durg's armored plates had gone still, unnaturally still. "Absurd," Durg barked, but his voice carried cracks. Zorax's face hardened. "Durg, your brother commands your Empire's intelligence division. He has access to Tissoid tech. He opposed Earth's membership from the start." Security officers shifted. Hands hovered over weapons. Vaz whispered, "It's him, he's the one." And in that instant, Durg moved. His armored hand snapped beneath the table and came up clutching a small device, a dead man's switch. "Stay back," he roared. "This chamber, this station is wired with explosives. One twitch and you all die." Panic erupted. Delegates screamed. Guards froze. Supreme Counselor Drexus clutched his hover platform, trembling. And James Blackwell stood, calm, hands open at his sides. He began walking toward Durg. Every alien in the chamber froze. Trellick's limbs locked with horror. "Is he insane?" Durg bellowed, weapon trembling in his claws. "One more step, human, and you kill us all." Blackwell ignored him, picked up a glass of water from the council table, took a sip. His voice was conversational. "Interesting device, Praxian design. Modified, keyed to your biosignature, clever, impossible for anyone else to disarm." Durg's plates twitched, sweat beaded between armored joints. "I said stay back." "Of course," Blackwell said smoothly. "Except for the fatal flaw, biokeyed devices rely on constant input. Disrupt that input even for a second." In one sudden, fluid motion, Blackwell flung the water into Durg's face. The general sputtered, eyes blinking instinctively. And in that single heartbeat, Blackwell's hand shot out, precise, clinical. He struck a nerve cluster beneath Durg's upper arm, the limb spasmed, paralyzed. The device clattered to the floor. Security forces swarmed, seizing Durg before he could recover. The chamber erupted in shouts, alarms, orders. But through it all, James Blackwell calmly handed the dead man's switch to a technician. "You'll want to check power junctions first," he advised. "Those would be the logical targets." Then he turned to the stunned assembly. His blue eyes swept them, calm and cold. "Ladies and gentlemen, who still thinks humanity is unprepared for membership." The station was quieter the following day, but not calmer. Whispers followed James Blackwell wherever he went. Some called him a hero. Others called him a manipulator. Many simply stared as he passed, a pink-skinned anomaly, the soft-bodied predator who had stared down Craxians and unmasked a conspiracy. Trellick knew the truth lay somewhere in between. Still, when the human approached him that morning, tablet tucked neatly under one arm, Trellick stiffened with unease. Undersecretary, Blackwell said politely. I was hoping you'd give me a tour, not the diplomatic halls, the commons, the places where people live, barter, argue. I need to see the consortium as it is, not just as it pretends. Trellick's 6 eyes blinked in rapid succession. Why me? Blackwell's smile was faint, unreadable. Because you watch me without fear or favor, that makes you useful. It wasn't a request. The Central Commons was a sprawling cathedral of glass and light. Hundreds of stalls lined the spiraling walkways, selling everything from thought crystals to bioengineered nutrient pods. Species of every shape and size mingled in the open air. Floating gas beings from the methane worlds hovered above insectoid traders, while crystalline Aluxians pulsed faint light in rhythmic conversation. Trellick had walked these halls his whole career, yet beside Blackwell, he felt as if he were seeing them anew. The human didn't stride arrogantly. He didn't cower. He adapted. With the communal trisoids, he bowed to the group before speaking to individuals. With the militaristic Craxians, he stood a little straighter, shoulders squared in subtle respect for rank. With the Aluxians, he asked quiet, thoughtful questions about their philosophy of consciousness. Trellick couldn't help asking, how do you do that, adjust so easily? Blackwell's gaze swept the crowd. On Earth, before we united, we had thousands of nations, hundreds of languages. A diplomat needed to master dozens of frameworks just to survive. Adaptation wasn't optional. It was survival. Trellick's tendrils curled. So you practice this, pretending to be what others want. Not pretending, Blackwell corrected gently. Understanding, empathy. If I can see what matters to them, I can meet them halfway. Trellick muttered, or exploit them. Blackwell's eyes flicked toward him, blue as frozen seas. Exploitation is easy, trust is harder, but trust lasts longer. Their tour was interrupted by shouting near a merchant's stall. A massive Gorland trader, muscles rippling beneath 6 heavy arms, towered over a trembling Prixian merchant barely a meter tall. You dare sell me defective crystals, the Gorland roared, translator struggling to keep pace. I should crush your shell for this insult. The Prixian stammered in broken clicks. No defect, no defect. Configuration matched your request. Security drones hovered nearby but were too far to intervene in time. The Gorland raised 2 massive fists. Before Trellick could react, Blackwell was already moving. He stepped between the trader and the merchant, hands open, voice calm. Excuse me, perhaps I can help. The Gorland swung toward him, fury in all 4 eyes. This is not your concern, human. Actually, Blackwell said evenly, it is. As Earth's representative, peaceful resolution of disputes directly impacts our membership application. The Gorland's fists lowered slightly, hesitation flickering. Everyone had heard the stories of the human who stood down Craxian assassins. Blackwell extended his hand. May I see the crystal? The Gorland shoved it toward him. Blackwell turned it carefully, studying the facets. Then he glanced at the trader's insignia. Ah, a heavy transport class vessel, correct? This is a Mark VI array crystal for scout-class ships. An honest mistake. Wrong configuration, not defective. The Gorland blinked, rage draining into surprise. You know our fleet insignias. Blackwell shrugged. I study ship design as a hobby. He turned to the Prixian. You can reconfigure this for heavy transport, yes. The Prixian nodded frantically. Small fee, 10%. 5, the Gorland countered. 7, Blackwell interjected smoothly, with a guarantee of compatibility. Both aliens hesitated, then nodded in agreement. By the time the drones arrived, the crisis was already resolved. They walked on, past the hydroponic gardens glowing with bioluminescent crops. Blackwell paused to study the alien plants, fingers brushing the glass that kept their atmosphere stable. You knew exactly what to say back there, Trellick said. How? Because anger always hides fear, Blackwell replied. The Gorland wasn't afraid of fraud, he was afraid of humiliation. I gave him a way to walk away with dignity intact. Trellick stared at him, baffled. You make it sound simple. Blackwell's smile returned, faint and sharp. Simple doesn't mean easy. For a moment, silence stretched between them. The human stared at the glowing plants. Trellick stared at him. Finally, Trellick whispered, You are far more dangerous than you look. Blackwell's smile widened, teeth catching the light. That may be the nicest thing anyone has said to me today. The warning. Their walk ended on the observation deck, where the stars spread out in a glittering sea. Dozens of alien ships drifted beyond the station, silent in the void. Trellick found himself asking, almost against his will, "What do you want from us, really?" Blackwell didn't answer immediately. His eyes were fixed on the stars. When he spoke, his voice was softer than usual. Survival, cooperation, understanding. Humanity isn't strong because of weapons or numbers. We're strong because we learn, because we adapt. He turned, eyes locking onto Trellick. And because when the moment comes, we protect. Trellick felt a chill crawl through all 6 limbs. He wasn't sure if it was fear or awe. Before he could reply, the station AI's voice shattered the calm. Emergency alert, security breach, multiple intrusions detected in data archives, priority 1. Trellick's tendrils coiled tight. The archives, the most secure vaults of the consortium. Blackwell's eyes hardened. The predator returned. "This isn't over," he murmured. The station shook as explosions echoed deep within its core. Trellick staggered, his 6 eyes blinking wildly. Red alarms pulsed across the observation deck, bathing everything in a crimson haze. The AI's voice was calm, almost mocking against the chaos. "Warning, unauthorized access detected in data archives. Multiple hostile teams identified, security compromised." Blackwell didn't hesitate. His blue eyes hardened, his body tense but controlled. "They're not after blood this time," he muttered. "They're after secrets." Trellick grabbed his arm with trembling tendrils. "The archives hold every treaty, every protocol, every classified resource map. If they reach the inner vault." "They won't," Blackwell pulled free, already striding for the exit. "Not if we stop them." The descent. The path to the archives was chaos. Diplomats were being herded to secure zones, security drones zipped past in swarms, and distant thunder rolled through the station's frame. Captain Morox intercepted them near the transport tubes, armored carapace glistening with stress. "Ambassador, you cannot be here. This is a combat zone." "Exactly why I am here," Blackwell replied flatly. "How many hostiles?" Morox's mandibles clicked in frustration. "At least 2 squads, unknown weapons. They've already breached outer locks." "Then we move," Blackwell said. Trellick balked. "You're unarmed." The human's faint smile returned, sharp as a blade. "You'd be surprised what humans can do unarmed." The archives were buried beneath layers of crystalline corridors and defense grids. When they arrived, smoke and shattered doors marked the way. Security drones lay twisted, their sensors shattered. The attackers were already inside. Morox's soldiers opened fire down the corridor, but the hostiles returned with precision, energy bolts slicing through the haze. Then Blackwell moved. He didn't charge, he didn't shoot. He studied, eyes scanning every flicker of light, every angle of cover. Then, in a low voice, he gave instructions as if he had rehearsed this battle 100 times. 2 suppressing from the left alcove, 1 sniper high at 30 degrees. Push smoke to the right, force them into choke point C. Morox blinked, astonished. "How do you know?" "Pattern recognition," Blackwell cut him off. "Now move." They did, and it worked. Within minutes, the attackers were forced back, stunned, captured, but Blackwell didn't celebrate. "That was just the first line," he murmured. "The real team is deeper." Into the core. They pressed into the central vault chamber. The crystalline walls pulsed with protective fields, the archive's vast databanks glowing like veins of light. It was knowledge incarnate, maps, treaties, genetic codices, cultural records, all of it. And at the far end, figures worked furiously at the control terminals, cloaked in shadow. Their weapons gleamed with Tissoid manufacture, but their movements. Blackwell narrowed his eyes. Not Tissoid, too rigid, military training. Morox cursed, Craxians again. "Not just Craxians," Blackwell said softly. "Traitors." The intruders noticed them. Blaster fire erupted, scorching walls, shaking the chamber. Blackwell didn't flinch. He moved low, fast, weaving between crystalline pillars with terrifying precision. He wasn't faster than the aliens. He wasn't stronger. But he was unpredictable. One attacker raised his weapon, only for Blackwell to slide beneath the shot, slam his elbow into a knee joint, and rip the blaster free. In the same motion, he turned the weapon on another assailant, dropping them with a stunned pulse. Morox's soldiers followed his lead, pressing hard. Trellick could only watch in stunned silence. The human fought like no species he had ever seen. Not the brute force of Craxians, not the precision of Aluxians, not the swarm tactics of Trisoids. It was something else, something older, relentless, patient, predatory. The archives echoed with the sounds of combat, shouts, gunfire, sparks. And through it all, Blackwell moved like a storm, dismantling the enemy piece by piece. At last, only one attacker remained, a commander in dark armor, retreating toward the databanks. He shouted something guttural in Craxian before raising a device. A virus injector. If it connected, centuries of consortium data would be corrupted, erased, rewritten. Blackwell's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. "Drop it." The commander sneered. "You think you can stop the tide, human? Information is power, and today power changes hands." Blackwell's smile returned, cold, razor-thin. "You're right, information is power, which is why I already know who you are." The commander froze. Blackwell stepped closer, weapon steady. "3rd Brigade, brother of General Durg, you've been running this from the start. The assassination attempt, the dreadnought distraction, and now this." The commander's mandibles twitched. "You shouldn't know that." "But I do," Blackwell replied, "because humans don't just fight battles, we study them." In a blur, he fired. The injector clattered to the floor, destroyed. The commander collapsed, stunned and shackled by Morox's troops. The archives were safe, for now. As silence fell, Trellick finally found his voice. His tendrils quivered as he stared at the human. You knew all along." Blackwell lowered his weapon, eyes dark and unreadable. "I suspected, now we have proof." Trellick swallowed hard. "How much more do you know, human?" And Blackwell's smile, the same one that unsettled every species in the chamber, spread across his face. "Enough to know this war isn't about Earth. It's about the consortium itself." The chamber lights pulsed red. The AI's voice was flat and merciless. "Warning, Craxian dreadnought locked on station core. Estimated time to impact, 4 minutes 50 seconds. Trellick's hearts hammered in his chest. He spun toward Captain Morox. "They'll destroy everything, tens of thousands of lives." Morox's mandibles clacked in fury. "We can't intercept a dreadnought strike. Our defenses won't hold." Panic rippled through the council chamber. Delegates shouted, translators scrambled to keep pace, aides fled toward secure corridors. And in the center of the storm, James Blackwell stood perfectly still. He didn't shout, he didn't panic. He simply raised his head, eyes locked on the holoscreen where Commander Zorax's scarred face glared back. "Commander," Blackwell said softly, his voice cutting through the chaos, "you're making a mistake." Zorax's mechanical eye glowed red. "The mistake was allowing your kind here at all. My orders are clear. Destroy the station unless the human is surrendered immediately." Drexus, the Supreme Counselor, leaned forward, trembling with age. "You would slaughter us all, Zorax? Your own allies?" The Craxian's mandibles scraped. "Sacrifice is acceptable, dishonor is not." Trellick felt cold dread wash over him. This was it, the end. But Blackwell's expression didn't waver. His voice was calm, too calm. "You don't want to destroy this station, Zorax? Not really." Zorax snarled. "You presume to know my mind, human." "No," Blackwell replied. "I know your pain, Proxima Centauri. 17 ships lost, 3 with your kin. You blame the consortium, you blame me. But tell me, why are your sensor readings so conveniently imperfect? Why do they mimic Earth, but only partially?" Zorax hesitated. The doubt was subtle, but Blackwell seized it. "Because you were meant to see them," he pressed. "You were meant to pull that trigger, to become the butcher who destroyed this station, to carry the shame forever." The commander's jaw tightened. "Lies." "Truth," Blackwell countered. His voice was steel now. "You've been set up. The real enemy is Earth. It isn't even me. It's the ones who put that virus team in the archives while you were out here playing the executioner." Trellick's eyes widened. He whispered, "He's turning it back on him." Blackwell stepped closer to the screen. His voice dropped low, intimate, as if speaking only to Zorax. "Here, what will happen if you fire? You'll kill Drexus, the oldest leader in the consortium. You'll kill Aluxians, Trisoids, Tisoids. You'll kill the very worlds your empire depends on for trade. And when the smoke clears, do you think your own people will thank you? Or will they whisper that Zorax was a traitor manipulated by unseen hands? The commander's claws trembled on his console. "You don't have proof," he growled. Blackwell's faint smile appeared, sharp and dangerous. "I don't need proof. I only need you to believe I have it." The AI's voice intruded again. "Impact in 3 minutes." Morox hissed, "Ambassador, we're out of time." Blackwell ignored him. He kept his eyes locked on Zorax. "Call off your strike, or you'll be remembered not as a warrior, but as a fool who doomed his empire." The chamber was silent, but for the AI's ticking countdown. 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Trellick's limbs shook. His mouth was dry. He's going to fail. He has to fail. And then Zorax laughed, a low, bitter sound. "You play a dangerous game, human." Blackwell's reply was soft, almost a whisper. "It's the only game humans know." The dreadnought's weapons dimmed. The lock on the station's core vanished. Gasps filled the chamber. Relief broke like a wave. But Zorax wasn't finished. His scarred face leaned closer to the screen, cybernetic eye glinting. "You're clever, Blackwell, too clever. I will not destroy the station today. But remember this, predators eventually meet predators greater than themselves." The screen went dark. The chamber erupted in noise again. Delegates crying out, Drexus sagging with exhaustion, Morox issuing sharp orders. But Trellick couldn't stop staring at the human. Blackwell stood alone, shoulders relaxed, his face unreadable. Trellick approached cautiously. "You bluffed him." Blackwell's blue eyes shifted toward him. "Of course. You didn't have proof." "I didn't need it." Trellick shivered. "What if he had called your bluff?" Blackwell's faint smile spread, the smile that unsettled every species in the chamber. "Then we'd all be dead. Fortunately, humans are very good at sounding more certain than we are." Later, as the chamber emptied, Trellick lingered. He found himself speaking words he hadn't meant to. "You're not like us, any of us." Blackwell's gaze drifted back to the stars outside the viewport. His voice was low. "No, we're not. That's why you need us." Trellick swallowed hard, torn between fear and fascination. And then the AI's voice shattered the fragile calm again. "Security breach detected. Level 7. Defense protocols disabled. Source, internal override." Vaz rushed in, her 4 eyes wide with alarm. "It's not over. Someone inside the council just handed control of the station's defenses to the enemy." The alarms shrieked through the station. "Defense grid offline. Level 7 override. Warning, all external shields disabled." Trellick staggered against the council table, his 6 eyes wide with horror. Without the shields, the station was a corpse waiting for fire. Captain Morox cursed in his harsh insectoid rasp. "Someone inside the council chamber issued the override. Only senior members have that access." Vaz's 4 eyes darted across her datapad. "Cross-referencing logs now. Someone masked their identity." Trellick whispered, voice trembling, "We're finished." And then James Blackwell moved. He didn't panic, he didn't shout. He simply straightened his uniform, hands clasped behind his back, and began walking toward the chamber doors. Trellick's tendrils lashed. "Where are you going?" The human didn't look back. His voice was calm, cold, certain. "To finish the hunt." They tracked the override signal through the lower council wing. Smoke and panic filled the corridors, but Blackwell led with the steady precision of a bloodhound. Every turn was chosen without hesitation, every junction studied with those piercing blue eyes. Finally, they burst into a sealed chamber, one of the private strategy rooms. Inside stood an Aluxian elder, his crystalline body pulsing faint light, a council member of centuries, known for his serene wisdom. But the datapad in his hands glowed with the override code. Trellick froze. "Elder Valen, impossible." The Aluxian turned, his voice a soft hum. "Not impossible, necessary." Blackwell stepped forward, gaze sharp as a blade. "You fed false scans to Zorax, you orchestrated the archive breach, and now you've lowered the shields." The Elder's light flickered. "The consortium is weak, corrupt, stagnant. We needed chaos to burn away the rot. Humanity was the perfect spark." Trellick's tendrils quivered. "You'd kill tens of thousands for renewal." Valen's voice remained calm. "Sacrifice is the price of survival." Blackwell's voice cut in, low and deadly. No, predators don't slaughter for chaos. They hunt with purpose. You're not a predator, you're a parasite. Valen raised a hand. Energy crackled from his crystalline fingers, hurling Morox's soldiers backward. The Elder wasn't just a diplomat. He was one of the most ancient and powerful psionics in the consortium. Trellick was thrown against the wall, gasping. Vaz's datapad shattered. But Blackwell kept walking forward, eyes locked on the glowing Elder. "Do you know why humans survived on Earth?" he asked, voice steady even as the room shook with psionic fury. "We weren't the strongest, we weren't the fastest, but we never stopped. We ran our prey into the ground, we adapted, we endured, we hunted." Valen's light flared, beams of energy lashing toward him. Blackwell Dove rolled, grabbed a fallen soldier's stun rifle, and fired. The blast shattered Valen's focus. The Elder screamed, his crystalline body fracturing with cracks of light. Morox's soldiers surged forward, binding him in suppression fields. The override signal died. Across the station, shields flared back to life. The station was safe. Hours later, the chamber reconvened, exhausted, shaken, but alive. Supreme Counselor Drexus, frail on his hover platform, raised a trembling hand. "Order, we must decide Earth's petition now." Some protested. Too soon, too chaotic, but others knew the truth. Without Blackwell, they would all be dead. Trellick sat stiff in his seat as the roll call began. One by one, the delegations voted. Yes, 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 even the Craxians, Zorax himself appearing on screen, his scarred face grim but resolute. "Let it be known," Drexus said at last, voice cracking with age. "Earth is now a full member of the Galactic Consortium." The chamber erupted in noise. Applause, cheers, nervous whispers. And through it all, James Blackwell stood silent, hands folded, eyes fixed on the stars beyond the glass. Later, Trellick found him on the observation deck again. The human leaned against the rail, the endless void stretching before him. "You changed everything," Trellick said quietly. Blackwell didn't turn, "Did I?" "Yes, without you we'd be ash." Trellick's voice shook. "But you frighten me, human, all of you. You smile, and I never know if it's kindness or a predator showing its teeth." At that, Blackwell finally turned. His blue eyes were softer now, touched with something Trellick almost thought was sadness. "Why not both?" he said. Trellick felt a chill crawl through him. Yet beneath the fear was something else, reluctant respect, perhaps even hope. Blackwell looked back to the stars. His voice was low. "Predators don't just kill. The best ones maintain balance. That's what diplomacy should be. That's what humanity will bring." And then he smiled. The Predator's smile. The smile that had saved them all, and promised a future none of them could yet imagine. 3 days later, the human ambassador's quarters overflowed with requests. Every species wanted Earth's envoy. Every world wanted human mediators. Trellick wrote his final report with trembling hands. "Humans are predators, that much is true, but the most dangerous predators are not those who kill without thought. They are those who know when to bare their teeth and when to extend their hand. The consortium will never be the same. Whether for salvation or downfall, only time will tell." And somewhere aboard the station, James Blackwell studied the stars, preparing for the next hunt.